In an unprecedented Israeli escalation in the region, Qatar has just been attacked by Israel, targeting Hamas negotiating team, described by Qatar's foreign ministry as a blatant violation of international law. The attack comes after Trump said that his proposal is accepted by Israel and urged Hamas to do the same. Even though Israel said that they got the green light from the United States, Netanyahu's office said that the attack was an independent Israeli operation. Meanwhile, in New York, the annual UN General Assembly is opening under the shadow of one of the most tragic wars, the Israeli genocide in Gaza. The United States has refused visas for President Mahmoud Abbas and the entire Palestinian delegation, prompting outrage and calls to shift the session to Geneva. At the same time, UN experts are warning of genocide and a man-made famine in Gaza, with hundreds already dead from starvation and over 500,000 facing hunger. But Israel continues its military campaign in Gaza City and speaks openly of annexation in the West Bank. The General Assembly now faces a stark question. Can it act decisively to stop famine and uphold international law? And will the 80th session mark a turning point for Palestine? Welcome to Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
Ladies and gentlemen, a few minutes ago, the world was shocked when we all saw smoke rising from the capital Doha as a result of explosion, and then Israel admits that it tried to assassinate Hamas members who were there in Doha as part of the negotiation process. Of course, this rose so many questions. What is the path for peace, or at least ceasefire for now after this huge development? What would be the reaction of other nations, particularly the United States, and what will be the destiny or the path towards peace in the coming days after this blatant attack on a sovereign country, that is Qatar? And moving on, UN human rights experts have issued an urgent call for the UN General Assembly to hold an emergency meeting before the 17th September deadline to demand an end to Israel's occupation of Palestine. The experts warned that genocide and a man-made famine are unfolding in Gaza, with silence and inaction no longer an option. They stressed that Israel must lift its siege, stop obstructing humanitarian aid, and agree to an immediate ceasefire. The UN experts accused Israel of deliberately using hunger as a weapon of war and said that it cannot be entrusted with controlling aid. They reported more than 2,000 Palestinians killed at aid distribution sites, a huge number. Many are the US and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation System, or the cold Gaza Humanitarian Foundation System, which they said violates international law. They urged the General Assembly to act under the Uniting for Peace framework, demanding a permanent ceasefire, UN-supervised humanitarian convoys, the opening of all crossings, the suspension of failed aid mechanisms, and internal accountability for war crimes. The experts said that the situation in Gaza is intolerable and unconscionable, warning that failure to act makes the international community complicit in genocide. The Guardian reported that the U.S. visa refusal for the Palestinian delegation has prompted calls to move the upcoming UN General Assembly session on the two-state solution from New York to Geneva. The Trump administration denied entry to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and 80 senior officials, blocking their participation in one of the most significant diplomatic moments for Palestine. This mirrors the 1988 precedent with Yasser Arafat, was barred from New York, but the current blanket ban is unprecedented in UN history. The U.S. State Department justified the decision on national security grounds, accusing the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, of not complying with their commitments and for undermining the prospects for peace. The Guardian, meanwhile, noted that Abbas was scheduled to address the General Assembly on the 23rd of December and to attend a France-Saudi Arabia co-chaired meeting on a two-state solution the previous day. A group of states, including the UK, France, Australia, and Canada, are expected to formally recognize Palestine at the meeting. The controversy has raised wider questions about U.S. obligations under the 1947 UN agreement, which generally requires Washington to allow access for foreign diplomats to the UN in New York. Israel attacks Qatar and attempts to assassinate the Hamas delegation that was there for the peace talks. Qatar has vehemently condemned Israel's attack on a residential area in Doha, which targeted members of Hamas's political bureau. Qatar's foreign ministry stated that the aggression is a blatant violation of international law, and it warned that it will not tolerate Israel's reckless behavior or any action that threatens the security and sovereignty of the country and the wider region. A situation that requires further analysis, and so we are joined from Cairo by Mr. Ahmed Maharim, writer and political analyst. Welcome to Q News, Mr. Maharim. We have just seen Israel's crimes escalate from bombarding Gaza for nearly 2 years, attacking Syria and Lebanon, to now attacking Qatar, which is a neutral state and a mediator in the ceasefire talks. How do you see such an escalation by Israel?
I think it's a kind of a sudden, because it is not only a violation to the international law, but it came in a very, very sensitive time. How many times Qatar itself and Egypt and America, three of them, are doing a lot of good efforts in order to negotiate the problem which it happened 2 years ago between Israel and the Palestinians, especially with Hamas. Hamas agreed for that kind of discussion and negotiation. If America is giving the green line for such a meeting to be held in Qatar, in Doha, that means America itself has all the details about what's happening in Doha. Doha for many months and years have done a very, very sensitive and positive impact to the problem in order to negotiate the matter and give the Palestinians their right.
Yes.
It is very shame. It is very shame to Israeli to attack Doha. The meeting is already under the responsibility of America. It came in a very sensitive time. The United Nations, in 10 days' time, the General Assembly is holding an annual conference. All the leaders are coming. Again, shame on the United Nations and President Trump himself to stop giving the visa for 80% representing the Palestinian delegation with Mahmoud Abbas himself. So what happened today is actually is not only escalating what's happening, it's giving dead hope for any kind of negotiation to the Palestinian state and to the Palestinian how kind of stability in the region.
Okay. Sir, allow me to just read for you some of the reactions. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said that Israel cut himself oversaw the operation in Qatar. The Bureau of Netanyahu said that they took the green light for the operation from the United States, from President Trump. Jordan's foreign ministry said that we stand with Qatar in any steps that it takes to protect its security. You have just mentioned that the timing is very sensitive. How do you read the recent Israeli strikes on Doha that occurred while there is a ceasefire plan proposed by Trump on one table? Trump at the same time gave the green light for the assassination attempt in Qatar. And how do you think the consequences will be for the credibility of the United States?
Well, credibility of the United States, there is no doubt for the last 2 years, it is not as used to be and as the trust of the international world. With the green line of the American administration and mainly from President Trump, opened the appetite of Benjamin Netanyahu to do extremely what he's doing. He is always very proud to say, I'm fighting against 7 districts. Now he would like to consider the 8th district, Doha. Doha is not in a fight with Israel, but Doha used to assist the Middle East negotiation in order to assist also the Prime Minister of Israel to find a solution to his problem. Again, what happened today is against so many things as international law, but it is exceeding and exceeding the all hope of all Arab countries and international leaders to find a solution. Israel's appetite is under the hunger of Benjamin Netanyahu. Nobody can stop Benjamin Netanyahu of doing what he is doing exactly unless America or Trump. Does Trump and America would like to do that? I doubt. I don't think America has to think something different, because with what's happening, America will be in a trouble to lose the credibility and the friendship of a very important countries in the Middle East. Qatar is one of them.
Of course. And now we are joined from Ramallah by Mrs. Tamara Haddad. She is a writer and political researcher. Mrs. Haddad, what do you think Qatar will respond? How will it respond to this attack of Israel? And how do you read the reactions of other countries to the attack on Qatar?
My greetings to you and to your audience. First of all, Qatar heavily condemned the Israeli airstrikes on its territory and labeled it a terrorist aggression. And they labeled this as an outright violation of the international laws. Qatar will not accept any targeting of anyone residing inside Qatar and will consider this as a direct threat to its national security and as a threat to those residing in Qatar. And Qatar will, through its civil and security defenses, they will contain the damages and will start their investigations on the matter. Of course, the attack targeted the negotiating group of Hamas, which existed at the place. They wanted to take part in the ceasefire endeavors, which occurred in the last month. And up to this moment, no reports that indicate that Qatar has responded to Israel militarily. Qatar only condemned politically and diplomatically the Israeli stance. And the investigations are still ongoing. And Qatar wants to maintain its role as an intermediary and a mediator in the ongoing negotiations, aiming to impose a ceasefire and delivering the humanitarian aid to those in need. Qatar always points that negotiations and political routes must be continued. Only we now have diplomatic and political insights and responses from Qatar.
Okay, yes. I get your point, and I would like to go back again to Mr. Maharim. Mr. Maharim, how do you read the Israeli statements, particularly by Bezalel Smotrich, that there is nowhere immune from the long arm of Israel anywhere in the world? How do you read the statement?
I think we are used to hear such a kind of statement from the leaders of Israel. The conclusion that they don't care exactly, this is a good translation of what they have said on their statements. They don't care about the reflection politically from the region or from the international world. Israel feels like nobody can stop them of doing what they're doing. And yesterday, if we compare that 5-6 soldiers and 5-6 civilians died in Israel, and Benjamin Netanyahu is very proud to say that he demolished 50 sky building in Gaza. Is that considered a kind of victory or kind of weakness? So I think the reflection of the international world will start to blame America first and Israel second.
Okay. Going back again to the UN General Assembly to take a look at its implications, especially after Israel's attack on Qatar. Now, Mrs. Haddad, the 80th UN General Assembly opens in New York amid global crisis. And of course, the recent escalation by the attack on Qatar. How do you see geopolitical climate shaping the session's priorities this year, especially after Israel attacked Qatar?
Up to this moment, the response is heavy condemnation. Up to this moment, they didn't even issue statements. They did not imply that they will use any military or any other mean of response. Investigations are still ongoing, targeting the negotiating delegation of Hamas while they were staying in Qatar is a targeting of the Qatari national security and an undermining of the sovereignty of Qatar. And the Arabs must coordinate to issue a joint statement and take a common stance, because Israel's violations have been increasing, and they have pointed that the media have pointed that this operation is solely conducted by Israel, both in military and planning and execution. So now the Qatari response can be deemed as cautionary. So this condemnation, this heavy condemnation, in the necessary context, it seems that up until now, no reports were issued stating who was killed and what was done, but it's clear that they targeted the delegation. The Israelis want Hamas to simply surrender. The airstrikes at the place they were in, the delegates, and the absence of all official statements, the Israelis, on the other hand, targeted many buildings in the residence, and it is a mean of pressure implied by Israel and executed by Israel. They want to use the strongest language and to impose the heaviest of penalties on Hamas. There is no way back for Netanyahu now. They want to eliminate all the members of Hamas, both inside Palestine and outside. They want to receive the victory, the total victory. That's why they are applying the assassinations like they did in Qatar.
Mr. Maharim, Washington has denied visas to President Mahmoud Abbas and 80 Palestinian officials. How significant is this move in undermining the credibility of the United Nations as a neutral forum?
Well, United Nations headquarters is in New York, And the United States of America is proud. Do you know, every September, the General Assembly, all the leaders and officials of 193 countries are coming to New York. New York itself is gaining $2 billion out of this convention every year. What happened for the last few years with the uncredibility of the United Nations, there is two very important countries in Europe. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Germany and Switzerland are offering the United Nations, if they can headquarter move to be host in either both countries, either Germany or Switzerland, and they consider that they can contribute those countries to cover the expenses, because President Trump on the first period, he stopped for a couple of months paying his share as America for the United Nations. Mm-hmm. America is considering 38% or 40%. So what's happening in the United Nations is under the control of the General Assembly. The Secretary General Antonio Guterres, a couple of times he would like to change the bureaucracy of the United Nations, and he's facing a lot of troubles. He does not believe that only 5 countries has the right of the veto. When 75 years ago, the population of the world was 2 million people. Now they are 8 billion people. So he would like to expand the number of other countries to share, like to make 8 or 10 people, 10 countries to be having the veto. The credibility of the United Nations is under test. And I think this upcoming General Assembly will face a lot of different opinions and all struggle against what happened for the last few years, especially what Israel is doing in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Haddad, given the U.S. stance on the recognition of a Palestinian state by many European states and also denying the Palestinian delegation attendance, how does the international community view this American position?
The international community, 149 have recognized Palestine. So the preventing a delegation to attend a UN assembly, this delivers a message. The message is that the United States is still, up to this time, is still aligning itself with Israel, and that they support Israel. The foreign minister, the American foreign minister, has extended his support to Israel. And on the other hand, they prevent the Palestinians to come and say their opinion on the matters, and these visas must have been issued as per signed treaties. But it seems that the United States is not leaning towards the two-state solutions. And if the administration, as per the international legislation, and what will take place in Geneva, it is important to transfer these points of view. The United States is violating the international law. So the credibility of the United States is now at stake. This deducts to the world that the United States is using a force law, and that they are not willing to further push real peace. They are now trying to impose a negative peace, which will not be accepted by the Arabs or the Palestinians. On the ground, these are initiatives by the European Union. It has a pivotal role in further supporting the security in the region and trying to put a stop to the war. So it is very important that a political route is found, and I think it's time to talk jointly from the Arabs' part. Also the Palestinians, they must stand firm and say or try to let the UN issue a resolution on the establishing of a Palestinian nation. This is very important for the establishment of a Palestinian state and the recognition of this state worldwide. And we hope not to see another American veto on the two-state solution, which will serve the Israeli goals and fortify their stance even more.
Of course. Yes. Mr. Muharrem, now several European countries, including UK, France, Canada, and Belgium, are preparing to recognize Palestine during this session. How might these steps shift the balance of international legitimacy in favor of Palestinian statehood?
I think the movement is going to be on the benefit of Palestine. And if the president of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, and the delegation will not be able to attend, they have a very important character in the United Nations, I think, to represent is Palestine, is the representative of Palestine in the United Nations. And he has been for a long time, and he knows all the details. I think even if the delegation and the President Abbas is not coming, and there is a lot of support from European countries, from the international world, with this upcoming General Assembly, with what Israel has done for the last 2 years, there is a hope that something can come as a kind of giving hope that possible that what the Palestinians have paid for the last years and all the struggle they have done, benefit will come to be recognized as a state, Palestine.
And we have just seen also the Prime Minister of Spain talking about the genocide and recognizing a Palestinian state. So, Mrs. Haddad, how do you think the Assembly will tackle the day after the post-war Gaza, given that UN endorsed reconstruction plan for Gaza, including a one-year technocratic government, an international stabilization force, disarmament of Hamas, and a rejection of mass deportation of Palestinians? So, Mrs. Tamara, this is being, of course, discussed with the U.S. to prevent the UN General Assembly descending into a bitter row about the recognition of a Palestinian state. So, what's your comment on that?
Up to this moment, the military operation, the Israeli military operation, is still continuing. So the talks about a technocratic government will not be in place unless after the war ends. So the UN Assembly must issue a project or a resolution to stop the war, impose ceasefire, and end all the crisis. The rule of Hamas must end, so that Netanyahu's claim will be no longer valid. So Hamas's point must be ended so that the war can be ended. It is very important to go on with the two-state solution. We must go on about ending the Israeli-Palestinian crisis. We must have a national unity government, a technocratic government, a Palestinian government working on the ground to improve the living situations in Palestine, taking into consideration all the societal and economical matters. But now we have a far-right government in Israel, and which are supported by the United States, and the United States must stop all the Israeli actions and stop the war and find total solutions. But if we are to go on about and about in this finite circle, Israel doesn't eye only the West Bank, they eye the whole region.
Well, a deteriorating situation in the region with the recent escalation by Israel by attack on Qatar. I'd like to thank my guests today for their thorough analysis. I'd like to thank Mr. Ahmed Maharim, writer and political analyst. Thank you so much, sir. And Mrs. Tamara Haddad, writer and political researcher. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank. We tried to present to you an analysis of what's going on in the region with the recent escalation by Israel attacking Qatar and, of course, the expected General Assembly session, the UN General Assembly session. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.